In the Old West, many madams came up with striking names to stand out. They introduced themselves as the Queen of Ireland or the Queen of Spain, hinting at origin and status. Those titles sparked curiosity and, little by little, became a brand. That persona promised a certain kind of experience, and customers showed up drawn by the storyline the name hinted at. In the early 20th century, Nevada's desert watched Goldfield grow at a feverish pace. The town put up streets, businesses, and promises of rising up. At the sound of the alarm, the brigade set out in a chemical wagon, a water tank, tools, and horses at full gallop. While mining made some rich, the flame of risk shadowed every corner. In the early 1900s, the horseless carriage became a promise of quick crossings through the West. Gasoline cars tempted with speed and range, calling explorers to the road. But the setting charged its price. Rough roads limited the adventure. In Arizona, dry ground and desert thorns meant flats, stops, and endless repairs. If you're enjoying the content, don't forget to subscribe to the channel. It wasn't just a place to get away. The Frontier Saloon pulsed like the town's heart, where almost anything fit. Between a mug and a plate, bets, deals, and arguments were born. Whoever showed up could rent a room, look for company, or catch a breather for the soul. Always one step from the swinging doors. Messages, music, and decisions that changed destinies flowed through there. In the Old West, the brothel was part of everyday life. Men looked for company, women did their work. A man decides to tell what he lived, recording faces, gestures, and promises that stayed behind. At each door, another story appears. He keeps going, alert for the next reveal, and tells it with no frills, only what he saw and felt. In 1867, a small wooden boat went down the Truckee River in Nevada on a scouting and mapping expedition. On deck were 4 men, the captain, a geologist, a photographer, and the cook. Through rapids, rocks, cold, and hunger, they pushed on. At every bend, scenes, animals, and plants appeared that they recorded and named before moving on. Wyatt Earp crossed the West as a lawman, moving from town to town and trade to trade. In Tombstone, alongside his brothers and Doc Holliday, he faced the gang the OK Corral shootout immortalized. Off the streets, he lived by hunting, business, guiding, and gambling. With Josie, he crossed deserts, dodged time, and turned into a myth, a story that would carry on in pages and on screens. In 1920 in Canada, a photograph captures 2 women in Alberta, smiling at the lens. Both wear cowboy gear, hats, shirts, vests, pants, and chaps. On the left, an unidentified figure, maybe from the ranch or the arenas. On the right, Maud Beardsley, a rodeo star who traveled the world with Buffalo Bill's traveling show. For Charlie Meadows, living meant following trails the map didn't show. With his scout patrol, he crossed Arizona, facing the desert step by step. The neckerchief marked the group. Steady reins guided the horse. Between risks and discoveries, courage and loyalty kept him in front, and his example cleared the way for everyone. 2 cowboys turned the West into a stage for humor and memory. Bound by friendship, they created works that still hold your gaze. Will Rogers, on the left in the photo, won over crowds with quick comebacks and spot-on commentary. Charles M. Russell translated the landscape into paintings and sculptures that fixed forever scenes of the Old West and its shared imagination. Before he shone in westerns, Edmund Richard Hoot Gibson had already been down a long road. Born in Nebraska, he became a cowboy, broke rough horses, and competed in rodeos. Later, he took the craft to circuses and Old West shows. Between the rope, the saddle, and stage presence, he shaped the performer that the movies would turn into a star. In 1889, May and Gordon W. Lilly ran with thousands for the opening of Oklahoma. The place hooked them, and they stayed. Gordon, known as Pawnee Bill for his ties with the Pawnee, wanted to tell the saga and his own turning point. He set up a traveling arena show that crisscrossed towns and showcased the skills of cowboys and indigenous peoples of the West. In Tombstone, Arizona, the Old West gets a name in John Clum. With the town incorporated in 1881, he took over as mayor and launched the newspaper The Tombstone Epitaph, which is still active. Alongside the Earp brothers, then the forces of law, He faced the so-called cowboys and steered the clashes that shaped the place's identity. Out of that came the legend of Tombstone. If you're enjoying the content, don't forget to subscribe to the channel. Frank Dalton, a deputy U.S. Marshal, came back from Indian Territory beat up by the road. Behind him were long trails, ambushes, and hard looks. In Fort Smith, he dismounted in front of the courthouse and turned in 6 shackled prisoners. Mission done, no relief. The next round was already calling, and the law only breathes when someone carries it through to the finish. Few knew where Eleanor Dumont came from. She showed up one morning in Nevada City with a French accent and an announcement. She'd be opening a casino. Curiosity turned into routine. The tables filled up and she, with a firm hand and sharp eye, read the bets, counted the pauses, ran the game. Between low chuckles and steady moves, she won regulars and made the saloon her domain. Between 1866 and 1869, Alfred A. Hart shot in stereoscopy the passage of the pioneer train of the Transcontinental Railroad through a narrow corridor carved into the rock of the Royal Gorge. Over 16 kilometers, the canyon follows the Arkansas River and reveals frame by frame the effort that connected the country by rail, linking the Atlantic and the Pacific. Richard Farnsworth was born in Los Angeles in 1920, in a home of an engineer and a homemaker. He grew up among saddles and arena dust, captivated by horses and rodeos. In the 1930s, he slipped into film quietly. He became an uncredited stuntman, taking on chases and cavalry fights where his skill said it all. In the era shown, the Colt 1860 Army still worked by percussion. With the end of Rollin White's patent in 1869, Colt started offering conversions to metallic cartridges. One of them, the Richards, updated the 1860. In the scene, a Native American holds an 1860 Army converted by the Richards system, with a nickel finish that reflects the light. In Lame Deer, Montana, the Denny Livestock Ranch was the stage for the daily routine of brothers Reuben and Wesley Buzenitz. They drove the cattle and kept the work in order, part of the northern cowboys who preserved the West. Hat, bandana, vest, and gloves made up the uniform, armor against weather and terrain. Among tack, fences, and pastures, every move carried weight. In 1920, a convoy crossed the Devil's Dance Trail in Death Valley. Ox wagons guided by 20 mules moved in line, steady and dust-covered. Known as the 20-mule team, the train linked the mines to the railroad and hauled borax, the base for soaps and glass, over dry, rocky trails, a job repeated day after day. In 1919, the horsewoman Kitty Canutt made the news by breaking the horse Winnemucca in a contest in Rawlins, Wyoming. The feat crowned a path. 3 years earlier, she had already been all-around champion in Pendleton, Oregon. In the rodeos, she earned a nickname that stuck, Diamond Girl, for the sparkle set in her front tooth. A symbol of courage and style in the arenas. Under the feared Judge Isaac Parker, Deputy U.S. Marshals patrolled Fort Smith, Arkansas. Between ambushes, gangs, and conflicts with native peoples, they served warrants with whatever they had. Their trusted ally was the Winchester 1873, a repeating rifle that fired without pause. On every incursion, the promise was simple: come back alive if you could. In 1881, the Canadian Pacific Railway was born to link Canada from coast to coast with a single railroad. Construction faced rivers and mountain ranges. Dynamite and tunnels opened a path and changed the landscape. The route also exposed fractures, resistance from indigenous peoples, and the exploitation of immigrants marked every kilometer of that crossing. Around Alice, 5 Texas Rangers set up camp with a straight-up purpose: investigate rumors of cattle theft on the vast King Ranch. Before sunrise, among hoofprints and low voices, they locked down the plan: follow quiet tracks, listen to those who talk too much, and expose whoever was getting rich off the missing cattle. Behind the scenes of Born Reckless, 1958, a Western with Mamie Van Doren, one name was left out of the credits: Ben Johnson. An Oklahoma cowboy and roping ace, he tweaked key scenes so they'd ring true. He already had a resume. In 1953, with his partner, he was world champion in team roping, a path that ties arena and screen with the same rope. In the publicity image for Rio Bravo, 1959. Angie Dickinson appears as Feathers beside John Wayne, Sheriff John T. Chance. The framing already signals the direction. Directed by Howard Hawks, we follow Chance who, with a few allies, holds the town's defense while a gang tightens the squeeze. Among the names of the Old West, Billy the Kid gets the spotlight. Born in New York in 1859, he moved with his family to New Mexico and was orphaned. At 14, he left home and went down the path of stealing horses and cattle. Jailed and on the run twice, he was finally shot by Sheriff Pat Garrett in 1881. His short life spawned biographies, movies, and songs, and kept the myth alive. In 1906, at the Turkey Track Ranch in the Texas Panhandle, 4 men swapped rivalry for a challenge. The game, Mumble Peg, was about throwing a pocket knife into the ground and pulling off tricks that got harder each round. Whoever messed up had to pay the forfeit, pull out a peg with their teeth. Whoever won got the glory of the moment and something to talk about for days. 2 Germans crossed the Atlantic in the 19th century and worked as butchers in San Francisco. Henry Miller and Charles Lux saw a bigger opportunity. They teamed up, started raising and slaughtering cattle, and with investments in farming and irrigation, founded Miller and Lux in 1858, which would become the largest meat producer and canner in the United States. In the 19th century, rifles sported long barrels, 28 to 32 inches, a solution that boosted accuracy and range. One record helps you picture it. In a photo of the guards of the Astoria Stagecoach Company in Oregon around 1880, you see the era's standard, long guns built into everyday transport and protection. If you're enjoying the content, don't forget to subscribe to the channel. In 1888, in Pueblo, Colorado, 2 young men face the camera. Hats, vests, and boots show the rough work of the West. In their hands, Winchester 1886s punctuate the silence. The frontier sets the rules, and they know them. In the dust, a brief, safe minute turns into memory. The routine that demands grit, the hope that pushes you on, the risk that chooses the fate. In 1895, Donaldina Cameron left a safe routine and dove into fighting the trafficking that brought Chinese girls to the U.S. Step by step, she raided brothels, broke up gangs, and rescued victims. Without backing down, she stayed active until retiring, creating shelters and safe routes that steered many young women away from the cycle of violence. We see a cowboy, maybe coming from Caldwell, Kansas. In the holster and on the saddle, a rifle and a revolver. The open plains demand caution. Wild animals, robberies, nights out in the cold. Between grassland and dust, he drives the herd, always watching the horizon. Stops barely last a breath. The long march goes on, guided by the goal of delivering the whole herd. Built in 1881, the Tabor Opera House shows a quiet strength right away. 3 stories set on brick walls 16 inches thick. The building made it through decades without losing its rhythm. Whoever walks in today can tell, act after act, how the place ties past and present together, keeping the bond between memory, stage, and city alive. On October 17, 1906, the theater in Deadwood was packed. In the cast, Charles Chapin wrote in his diary in amazement. The house was buzzing, a mirror of the mining town at its peak. Black Hill's gold had made fortunes and fed the euphoria. The nights ran long. The crowd spent freely, as if every show were one more chance to raise a glass. In the early days of musical westerns on film, Roy Rogers steps on stage wearing custom shirts by Nathan Turk. A Russian who settled in Los Angeles, the tailor became a go-to name for Western-inspired pieces for stage and screen. In the 1940s, he designed every shirt Rogers wore in his movies, stamping a style that became the genre's signature. Vera McGinnis and Earl Simpson crossed paths at a rodeo, got married, and shared the arenas for a while. But life on the road and the pressure of the events took their toll, and the partnership didn't hold up off stage. They split. Vera kept going strong, shone in the relay and in riding, and made the arena the path that pushed her toward the future. At the start of the 20th century, cowboys from the Three Seas Ranch near Duncan, Arizona, paused their work one morning in 1902. They sat out in the open for a quick lunch, trading laughs and stories. Among them One name got written down: William McDonald. Soon the break was over, and they all headed back to the pasture with the herd. In Solomon Butcher's photograph, a family poses in front of their sod and earth house in Custer County, Nebraska. Sod homes, built with blocks cut from the prairie, were a hallmark of the Great Plains. From the late 19th to the early 20th century, they sheltered migrants determined to turn that land into home. The portrait signals effort and staying power. In the second half of the 19th century, the American West took shape through expeditions and maps. In Black Canyon, where the Colorado cuts through rock in what was then the Nevada Territory, a canoe waits to shove off. The image, made in 1871 by Timothy O'Sullivan, veteran of Civil War documentation and member of Geological Surveys, captures the drive to explore. In Arizona, Fort Apache was an Army post between 1870 and 1922. In 1903, the 5th Cavalry Regiment paraded across the yard, showing discipline and precision. Meanwhile, visitors walked Officers' Row, the line of officers' houses. Today, they're the only buildings that keep the fort's original look and carry its memory forward. If you're enjoying the content, don't forget to subscribe to the channel. George A. Custer and Elizabeth appear at the entrance to the tent that was both home and headquarters. The pair poses side by side, between future plans and fresh memories. The scene sums up frontier campaigns: a mobile routine, quick decisions, and a gray greyhound at their feet, a constant companion among officers, reminding you that war was also made of affection, waiting, and moving on. In San Antonio, nights took on a flavor at Military Plaza, where the Chili Queens set up their stalls. There, chili con carne, a straightforward mix of meat and chilies, brought strangers together under the open sky. In the late 19th century, the tradition grew, echoing the Mexican period before the Republic and establishing itself as a symbol of the city. Born in 1838 in Maine, Samuel Knight headed west to California as a young man, pulled by the gold rush. Instead of betting on quick riches, he became a specialist. He built mills that ground the ore from the mines. While the Civil War consumed the country between 1861 and 1865, he stayed in the West, honing his craft and his own path, far from the battlefields. In 1849, an enslaved man in Arkansas began an escape that crossed the century. In Wyoming, he left Ned Huddleston behind and became Esam Dart, also Black Fox, Tan Mex, and Calico Cowboy. Crossing borders, he was a cook, a rodeo clown, a rider, and a horsebreaker. At the same time, he stole cattle and horses in Mexico and Texas and earned a reputation as an outlaw. Along the Snake River, the Nez Perce lived in northeast Oregon, southeast Washington, and central Idaho. When the U.S. Army tightened the noose, they resisted. Chief Joseph led the retreat north toward Montana and the Canadian border. With no way out, on October 5, 1877, he surrendered to Oliver Howard and Nelson Miles to save lives. As the fur trade grew in the 19th century, demand for reliable guns rose. Jacob "Jake" Hawken, trained by his father in Maryland, moved to St. Louis and in 1825 opened a shop with his brother Samuel. From there came the Hawken rifle, a muzzle-loading firearm made to operate safely and stand up to hard use. If you're enjoying the content, don't forget to subscribe to the channel. Between 1896 and 1899, the Klondike went through a gold rush. It all started on August 16, 1896, with a discovery by local prospectors. When the news hit Seattle and San Francisco the next year, the rumor became a wave. About 100,000 people headed toward the Yukon, crossing Alaska on brutal trails. Many turned back, others arrived too late and found nothing. In the 19th century Rockies, John Johnson earned the nickname Liver Eater. After losing his wife in a crow attack, he swore revenge. He hunted his enemies with patience and cunning, cutting out and eating their livers. Terror spread among the Crow, and fur trappers, fascinated by the bloody trail, passed along the story until it became legend. In 1868, Timothy O'Sullivan captured an image that sums up Nevada's silver rush. A worker drags an iron car packed with ore. The load came from the mines of the Savage Works, sunk into the big lode at Virginia City. The photo is part of a series that follows the daily grind and effort of the miners of that time. From Old West scenes to frontier arenas, cowboy shirts took shape. Wild West shows and rodeos brought cowboys and crowds together to celebrate skill and grit. Bold fabrics and embroidery showed the craft and roots of folks who lived among cattle, dust, and ropes. A costume made for the spotlight that, over time, turned into a lasting emblem. In 1993, Texan Robert Summers cast in bronze the sculpture Trail Boss, the leader of the old 19th century cattle drives. Today installed in Ogallala in southwest Nebraska, once a stop on the Western Trail, it pays tribute to cowboys and the unknown buried at Boot Hill. A plaque tells the story, while, from the pedestal, the rider seems to watch over the town.